Hello, everyone. Thank you for
Hello,
being here.
Luis.
I'm trying to breathe. I'm trying to breathe.
Hi, Luis, and hi, everyone. We're very happy to have this session today with Luis Bravo. He's a poet, performer, essayist, researcher, professor from Montevideo, Uruguay. He belongs to the 80s generation in Latin America, and since 1984, he has published 12 volumes of poetry, 7 CDs, and 2 CD-ROMs in consonance with his multimedia works in poetry. Some of his most important works are Árbol Veloz, a book plus CD-ROM from 1998, Tamudando, which is a DVD of a multiphonic concert played in Montevideo with musicians and dancers, and also some other works like Areñal N Topos Bilingües, published by Yao Guru and Luna Bisonte, publishing house of our common friend John Bennett in the States. And well, there's a lot of other CDs, and this is very important. His selected and new poems were published this year in March in the bilingual Voice and Shadow, New Orleans Lavender Ink, translated by Catherine Jago and Jesse L. Kercheval. So we wanted to let you know specifically this because Luis' works, although a great deal is based on Spanish language, has been widely translated in the last years and has circulated in the States and in other parts. He has published and other works, a lot of essays about phonetic poetry, avant-garde poetry, and poetry from Uruguay. So he has a very important work in all those fields that are very common to all of us here: sound poetry, linear or visual poetry, research, etc., etc. So thank you again, Luis, and we will follow the scheme you presented, and you will read another poem right now, so you can explain it.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I want to apologize because I have classes in the time you have this alive, but I think I saw most of the videos, and you are doing an extraordinary job. I'm I'm trying to work here without any kind of devices. I don't work with them. So Federico is there. Federico Eisner is gonna work with me. I just work with the voice and the text, and it's very different than the great job you've been working on. You know, all all the electronic things and incredible performance you've been doing here. So the first poem, or whatever you want to say it is, it was Vivimos. Uh, the original poem is a visual, not a phonetical one, from Gonzalo Millán. He's a Chilean poet from the 70s. He was not thinking about sound, so in this time I made another version, maybe a phonetic version of the poem, following a simple rule from the first syntagma of only consonants on these two words. I translated in English for you. I start to add one by one in each verse the vocals. First the O in the last word, second the A, the third, the I in the first word, but before filling the A in the second word, I complete the first one. This is because the word amordazados, that means gag in English, is one of which completes the meaning of the poem. And about the meaning of the poem, I think Millán wrote this in the 70s, probably related with the repression of the dictatorship. And I choose to work on the poem with Federico last December because it had a lot of meaning in the context of the social revolt that was happening in Chile. We recorded in Santiago last December. And in this global pandemic context, when we all have to use chin traps or sanitary masks, the poem became more literal than ever. So for me today, all those meanings were finally together. That's why we started with it. I don't know if you have any questions about this, or we can talk later.
I just wanted to add that, as you said, Gonzalo Millán was not thinking specifically in sound poetry or music. In fact, there's an interview, I don't know if Alejandro Zambra did it, in which he says, "I hate music." That was the title of the...
I know. he was trying to he was working on the visual thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny
Well,
that he wanted to make sound versions of his poetry because of that.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Millán. I'm sorry. Okay, this next poem was composed one afternoon, maybe, I think it was the year 2000. I was and then I read these words of Schwitters that says, Okay, the connection. Okay. Shweta says, you can, for example, recite the alphabet with originally has a functional purpose in such a way that it becomes a work of art. Well, that became a challenge for me, so I started to work on it. And then I discovered that the invitation to hear the alphabet as a poem was included on the back of the word alphabet in Spanish. You know, the word in Spanish is abecedario. And oír is the last dissonance of the word, is to hear. And oír a, D, C, B, A, it was to hear, and then the descendant scale, D, C, B, A. So I took the challenge and start to work on it. This version you're gonna hear, we're just gonna share it, is recorded. I think Fede, you can help me. I think it's one of the 4 we recorded working together, right?
3 versions.
3 versions, okay.
Yeah. 3 takes. There are 3 takes with many versions, actually.
All right. Okay. I'm going to ask you just if you can close other senses, even if you want to close your cameras, if you want to, and then listen the audio. I just work with the voice here, just the voice, not electronic manipulations. I think it has some reverb, right, Federico?
Yeah, but very simple.
Very simple. Okay, just concentrate on the alphabet in oír, de, se, va. You can
Ready?
share. Yeah.
Oír a, de, se, a. Se puede recitar el abecedario que en sus orígenes tiene un fin funcional, de tal manera que resulte una obra de arte. Kurt Schwitters. A, 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 a. A, 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 a. A. Señal, meter la O. O. Rins que te bebé, ra que te bebe, sí que te bebens, rins que te bebe en Ah.
Well, uh, after catching the insect of the zeta, I just pick up the A from the soil again, from the soil, and start again, all over. Well, okay, you can come on with the camera again if you want
Yeah,
to.
if you are still there.
If you're still there, if you're not, if you're not sleeping.
Yeah, no, impossible.
Okay. Okay. Let's go to the third and
Great.
last lecturing direct in Alive. Okay, this is gonna be The Voice. That's the title. I'll tell you some about it. Some things. Let me see. Okay, The Voice. I started working, I think, 28. I had to make a foreword to my book titled "Something Occurs Through the Voice," and I start to make this poem as a foreword. But when I was writing it, I knew it will be a synthesis of my experience and reflections about the staging of the voice in the poem. And at the same time, I wanted the poem to be a performatic text with many tributes incorporated to other voices, voices from other poets, voices from musicians, voices from history, my history and our history, contemporary history. And after including some styles of using the voice coming from other poets or singers, I arrived to the concept that I was using something like the transvocalization instead of transtextualization. I think that's the right concept, Fede, right? Transvocalization.
Or inter, I thought you
intervocalization.
Yeah,
intervocalization, something like that. Okay, it's a way to quote other voices, not only other text. And anyway, at some point I said, okay, this looks like it's going to be my merge poem. It's like, you know, the sculpture of Schwitters that it went on all the time, because the enumeration of the verses that almost always start with the word, the voice, was adding more and more and more possibilities all the time. That's probably infinite enumeration, and all kind of voices that I wanted to name into poems. So when I think 2 or 3 years ago, Catherine Jago took the challenge to translate it for a magazine, and then now is in this book, The Voice and the Shadow. I think, well, was the time to print it or you know, just stop to do adding voices all the time. So this is the first time I'm going to try to do this in English. In the New Orleans Poetry Festival 3 years ago with Jesse Lee Kirchhoff, I made the performance in Spanish, and then she read it in English. Two things about this lecture. First, Fede is going to share the text in English, so you can follow my terrible English with the lecture.
Are you seeing the poem?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and second, in Spanish, I made a lot of ludic intervocalization that in English I cannot do. And also because my pronunciation, I can catch the rhythm, nor the velocity of the staging of the voice. So it's more slow and not so ludic. But let's see how it goes. I don't know. Let's see how it goes. In the beginning was not the word but the voice. The voice drumming molluscous membrane, resting words out of breath. Breath. Daddy's voice echoed in mommy's heart. Love, 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 love. The voice of my most distant origin. The voice upon a vole, a blogger's toe mouth to upon God. The voice dies in the mouth, loose lips sink ships. The voice born in the mouth like the poem, Tzara, 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 Dixit. The voice sounding out, sound. The voice errant aerial phonemes, the voice air passing over the vocal scores, the oh, the I, the the of wine, of wind, of wine, of wind. The voice of grammar defines whether you, the subject, are agent or patient. The voice masculine monosyllable with feminine consonant. The voice thinks it says what I think as it speaks. Doesn't the voice know it knows nothing yet? Fala, fala in Portuguese means speaks fala and sings as if I did. The voice without a word is artlessly aimed at the audience. And the voice body, not the tattoo, the embodied voice. I said, au clair de la lune, mon ami Pierrot. The voice was first recorded from squeals on paper blackened with lamp smoke while a voice sang, au clair de la lune, mon ami Pierrot. Prête-moi ta plume, pour l'amour de Dieu. This was on Edward Leon Scott de Martinville's phonoautograph in 1860, and it was in the voice of Thomas Alva Edison 16 phonographs later, intoning, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, very little, little lamb. The voice of the poem is writing that finds its tone and speaks to us, says Lacan. And his heart hails aloud, including this voice that asks, the voice of no one. The voice of no one in writing. Does it write itself? The voice overheard as I read the voice of what's written. Who's that voice? Are all your voices? Are all voices you are? The voices are that you are? Are the voices are that you are? The mute voice of the inscription doesn't stop mutating. It's changing, changing, changing. Tamuda, do, do. Tamuda. Tamuda, do, do. Tamuda. Tamuda, ching, ching. Ching, 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 ching. The mameric voice of the morning dove in the shroud intervenes every 7 seconds. While it lacks poiesis, it has a great sense of rhythm. Don't you think? And the voice of the Ave Maria winging over the holy water of the Heron River. The voice of the law, but if there's justice. The voice will always have a vote. The voice of the national anthem. Es el voto que el alma pronuncia y que heroico sabremos cumplir. Que sabremos cumplir. The voice of command that commands the voice of dissidents to disappear. I denounce the announcement of that voice, its blind obedience in any point in the history of humankind. The voice of multitude, stadiums, tyrants, victims tremble in mass. And the voice of hatred, scalpel tongue. The voice of the muse in the heart's ear. The voice of the lover's soul that inhabits another's body. The voice half voiced by lovers. The voice of nature speaks, of course, but who the hell is listening? Voice the tempo of the conversation we were having in that time, remember? Cut off by 5 billion cell phones ringing all at once thanks to the ringtone set to the MMITSS back moving to the satellite. The voice of conscience, voice of evidence, seeing voice of oracles, time machine, voice bolt of unending lighting, electric body of poets addicted to poetry, of course, the hermetic voice entering into the voice fish and full stopping span of air. Something happens via the voice. This happens via the voice of joy, the joy of poison. And the voice of poetry with or without ink is distinct. The voice beauty is truth, truth beauty, from when kids expel Play-Doh from the ring of poesy. And the voice from Latin Vox, Vukis, Pandora's sound box, open 2020, and the vicious voice of plutonium whose speech corrodes human votes for yes. The voice of fear that will not call things but the name. And the voice of inanimate things, the voice blown round the sides of the larynx, the wondered voice of the wind or the one being wondered by it. the voice of polyphonic expansion of the universe. Manda la voz. The voice that guides sleepwalkers along the ledge of sleep. The voice, the secret score of the unconscious. The voice, a cable grounding the man in coma. Talk to him, tell her you love them. The voice of reason, of course, so perfect even when she coughs. And the voice, incessant vigilance of lunatics. The voice of the glass and in Bacchus, being seen the lunatics, lecturing in lifting islands, lunatic. The voice, your local paper, don't miss it, the voice is out. The voice of the shaman in Veglin, vernacular vermilion flycatcher, the voice of Gardel and Caetano and Lennon and Jagger and Billie Holiday and Nina Orchett and a Stairway to Heaven spoke, babe, 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 babe. The voice my dog understands and my cat withstands when I talk to them. And the voice of voiceless, demagogic voice of certain poets. The voice, if you have it, you have a ding dong dang. The voice of the fates. The voice of shadow. The voice of presence. The voice of friends. The voice of my dead loved ones speaking clearly into my ear. The voice with a capital V of God speaking through the voice of a baby, the voices beloved children from the first moment and forever. Lula, Joaco, Alecos, Yoyo, Neo, my children. One's own voice pretending to be identical to itself, the voice of myself, the speaker of my other voice of whom are all the voices you? All the voices are that you are. All the voices are that you are. You are all that voices of the voice of silence. That over the years picks what not to say. And the voice of destiny that finally reaches its destination. About voices, nothing is written. It could be like writing on water, but in the air. The voice is an arrow, shadow, the bow. Okay. Wow.
Thank you very much again, Luis.
Thank you.
And as I guess I said to you 2 years ago when you were in Chile and presented the Spanish version of this essay, I really appreciate the mix of an essay, which is kind of a poetics in a way, with poetry. It's not so common. I mean, well, the concrete poets, for example, did it in some way, and I really like when you see that the critical thinking and the poetic practices can be joined, can be together, can relate. So my first question, and then everyone can join and see what they like. It's about how did you arrive to this form of mixing theory references and sound poetry. How did you arrive, considering that you have a poetic trajectory and also an academic trajectory? You have written more academic writings, articles, whatever. So how did you arrive to this mix of these two dimensions that sometimes are separated?
Yes, thank you, Felipe, for your question. I think I just arrived through the experience, through many years of this, what I call the staging of the voice. That is a concept that I started to develop it in the 90s when I was working on the first CD-ROM that I knew with 20 different artists in my poems, and that was like an electronic theater, and I feel that that will be something from the future, and I wanted to think about what was going on, with my poems, and the work with the multimedia tools, with the multimedia tools, with other languages, with animation, video, painters, musicians, and then when we finished this project, Swift 3, that has 3 simultaneous publication in a book, in a cassette in those times, and a CD-ROM. I start to travel a lot to present this new stuff, and I was impelled to think about what was I doing, what was the experience of this. So in those times, I start to work on also in phonetic performance. That was in 1989. So in the 90s, I think it was a challenge for me to work on a different kind of poems, that include the phonetic, the visual, the multimedia, and the thinking, and the theoretical thing. So in the first years of this new millennium, I start to work on some of those poems that work on the conscious of the staging of the voice as a new kind of poetics in my work. In my work. I don't know if I answer your question.
And I think related to that, in lots of your performance, there is kind of a pedagogical process. I mean, you usually explain
a
pedagogical
pedagogical.
You like to
okay.
to reference the poets that you are taking the poem from, or whatever. And also something that I like very much, and that is related to the work that one of your collaborators and friends, Juan Ángel Italiano, also does. By the way, I recommend you very much blog that I will put the link right now by Juan Ángel Italiano. We used to say that it's the Latin American Ubu Web because it's full of work, especially on sound poetry, spoken word, music, etc. It's wonderful. Juan Ángel is also from Uruguay. He's in Maldonado, right?
Right.
Yeah. And
yes.
And you have collaborated lots of times. But I also wanted to notice that just as Juan Ángel does, and you also, you are always preoccupied I mean, you're very conscious of the tradition in avant-garde poetry, phonetic poetry, and even you have worked on like proto-phonetic poems in Uruguayan or Latin American poetry. So that is something that I like very much. And also in this essay poem, you show all those references. I mean, you are not proposing that what you do is like born out of nothing, but it's a tradition and it has lots of links. And also it's kind of a mission for us that are interested in try to bring it to the present.
Yes.
How do you see that?
Yes. Yeah, we are good partners with Juan Ángel Italiano. He's almost 10 years younger than me. We have a confluence in Dada,
yeah,
in neo Dada, but we also have this coincidence about taking points from the Latin American avant-garde, like in our country we have this poet named Alfredo Mario Ferreiro that he published only 2 books, one in 1927, The Man Who Ate a Bus, and the other one in 1930s. I don't know how to translate it. The title is Se Ruega No Dar la Mano, prophylactic poems. And the other one was Poemas con olor a nafta. And we make a CD about these 2 books. It calls Fono So Ferreiro. And when we do that, we study a lot, we research a lot, and I think we talked with this sometime with you, Felipe, and in the PM Festival.
Yeah.
We all know that Vallejo, Vicente Huidobro, Oliverio Girondo, even the Brazilian modernism, Oswald Andrade, the great poems of the avant-garde, they didn't record performances.
Yeah.
We don't have any testimony of their poems in the voice. It's something that we are missing in a historical way, and we don't know why, and we don't know if that happened because a lack of technology or a lack of work on the voice. I think it's the 2 things. So we have incredible poems like the poem number 7 from Altazor, 1931, from Vicente Huidobro, and we didn't have any representation of that poem in the voice, for not only from Huidobro, but from anyone. No, because it looks like Latin American poets that were very risky in their avant-garde experimenting language were very, very shy, or whatever you want to tell, about doing that with a voice. So I think our generation in the 80s, when we were young, I belong to a group of poets, young poets, that was a publisher house and a group of young poets, the ones. We start to make versions, vocal versions in collective ways, to bring this incredible tradition that it was mute. It was mute. We have these texts like if they were visual poems, and they were not visual poems. They were phonetic poems too. But what is the voice? Where the hell is the voice in Latin America? What happened with the voice? What happened with the other voice? Not this Berta Singerman voice, ¿verdad? Berta Singerman, the great reader of the 30s and the 40s. She was great. I love her recordings, but she was very traditional. Long dresses and on the scenery of the principal theaters of Latin America, and this kind of romantic, staging of the voice. Even when she do it with some text like the incredible ode, the polyrhythmo of Isabelino Gradin, the first poem to a football player, right from Parra del Riego. He was Peruvian and came to Montevideo in this transnational thing of the avant-garde, and he wrote in 1922 this incredible poem about the polyrhythm, celebrating the Afro football player Isabelino Gradin, and make it popular. We know now that is the only information we have, that Parra del Riego was a performer, but we don't have any recordings. He was a performer, and you can notice that when you read the polyrhythmo, because it's incredible the work of the rhythm he was doing there. When you listen the Berta Singerman staging of the voice, you say, okay, it doesn't have anything to do with this poem. So our work consists in making the staging of the voice related with the experimental language of the poem, of the text poem. I think that's what we are doing with Italiano in our works, in 100 Dada or Fonoso Ferreiro, or even last year with the Orquesta de Poetas, right? With some text from Parra, Violeta Parra, and another poets. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, but also in the recording of sound poetry was also difficult in Europe. No, we have the recording of Hausmann, because Henri Chopin went to record Hausmann in the 50s, in the 60s, and at the same, if you listen, the Apollinaire voice is really like classical voice.
Yeah.
Sur le pont Mirabeau, cool, la scène. It's like really. I think like really it's in the 40s, 50s, after Dada, the last part of Dada, that the poets start to understand that capacity of use the technology of the magnetophone to work with the voice in a way. And it's not. I think it's not only a problem from South America. It's a global problem. The only maybe the Schwitter's interpretation of Hausmann poem, you know, was maybe the only thing that we perceive that musicality of sound, and we have a little bit of that in the, I don't know, in the dodecaphonic word and in the concrete music at the beginning, but I don't know if not, it was like the reading of the sound poetry of the beginning that create the recording possibility of sound poetry in a way, you know. Thanks to Henry Chopin, we have a Hausmann in voices. If not, we are not at all, in a way.
Yes, Martin. But remember, we have the recordings of Marinetti, very important recordings, and they were very early in the century. And we also have the diary of Hugh Ball, that is incredible. His description of how the staging of the voice took him poetry, took him and changed his poetry, you know, from now on. And we have recordings from Sarah too, from distant Sarah.
Yeah, so really classical, no? Like the Omar approximative. We have some voice of the.
No, we have we have some very experimental polyphonetic recordings from Sarah and Yanko. I was in Iowa City, and I had the opportunity to listen and to see for the first time in 2012 an incredible archive of sound that I didn't know that it exists, and Iowa City has it in their library. So no, I think the futurism and the Dadaism not only record, but they lose a lot of recordings, a lot of them. But we know what they were doing, and they wrote about what they were doing. That's the difference. What I mean, Martin.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't know if the reading of those texts, you know, because like a Apollinaire text, they are the same. How do you say the same materiality that we understand now about some poetry, you know. Maybe
I agree with that.
Yeah, maybe with Oro, the reading really like in a I don't know, that kind of romantic poetical way of reading in a way.
Yeah.
Like Apollinaire when you hear his voices. But anyway, I think that capacity of transform the voice in a way, you know, not only record, that manipulate the voice and transform the sound, and take the sound outside from meaning at the same time and go beyond that meaning.
Yeah.
I don't know how do you feel in your work that now, like with the kind of we go beyond Dada experience. So what is your position now about meaning in your performance, in your poetry?
Yes, I have well, when we recorded the 100 Dada, we made a lot of Hugh Ball and Schwitters and other great composers that were in the asemantic, you know, I don't think there's no known sense. It's asemantic poetry, like Hugh Ball said, and I love to do that. But as I say, I don't work a lot with the manipulation of the voice through the electronic. It's just don't do it. Don't have the, you know, probably the opportunity to do it, the technology to do it. But I enjoy it a lot, and I feel there's another field about that, you know, and I saw a lot of your performance here that go in that way, and I enjoy it a lot. I I work in a more traditional way, trying to engage the whole thing, the phonetic, the voice, the semantic. Uh, in a way, I think it's more traditional, but I feel really good about the asemantic things of 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 neo Dada poetry.
Mm.
I enjoy it.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone have a question.
Yeah,
to
please feel free.
Yes, thank you. I really enjoyed all of the performances, and I do have a question, which was about the translation. I thought that was a really interesting decision to to inhabit the translation of your poem about the voice, and make the translation part of that voicing. And so I just wondered if you could talk a little bit more about that decision. And I noticed we have one of your translators with us. I can see in the participants there's a Laura, who I believe is another translator, not of that poem, but maybe it would be interesting to hear a little bit about the translation of this poetry that is so much located in, as you say, bringing all of those elements together. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm sorry. I don't know if I understood your question concretely. Okay. You want me to talk about the translation, or the challenge to do it in English?
Yes. Why? How do you feel about it? So,
what's
your relationship with
I feel embarrassed. I feel embarrassed.
Huh?
I feel embarrassed to do it in English, but I thought this audience was an English audience, so or the English was the language that everyone could understand. So I say, okay, let's try to do it. I don't know how do you receive that. I would like to talk about how do you.
Yes.
What was the reception of that? Because I can say anything like, okay, I'm sorry about my intonation or my accentuation or whatever. But I took it as a challenge, and start to work in some ludic voicing in English too. I made another poems in English, and I'm not only I don't have the satisfaction with that, but I will try. I will keep trying.
Yeah. But does it actually give you kind of more freedom in a way to do freedom? Does it free you to do different things? Does it remove it slightly from?
I discover different things. I discover different things. So I enjoyed that. I enjoy the exploration all the time. To explore, to investigate, to research, and then to prove it in the experience. That's what I like to do. And in the other way, I also love a lot to work in a very different style of this, not phonetical, not neo-Dada. I like the ballad, the lyrics. I love to play with musicians. I have three CDs with musicians, with different musicians, and I love to do that work. So I try to satisfy myself in very different stages.
Yeah.
In this way. And you were talking about Laura.
Yeah, but Laura he's here.
Laura has been my couple for 30 years, and she used to translate some poems from Árbol Veloz, from Swift Street to, but I don't think she's
not gonna say anything.
say anything, because she doesn't understand. She's a translator. She just worked with me together. in the first Swift tree, we have several translators, and some of them didn't make it with some of poems. So Laura and I worked together.
Yeah. Oh, okay. But so just looking quickly, but I think that's that's. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if Catherine or Jessie Lee are here. Are Catherine or Jessie Lee? I invite her at the last time, but I think that because Catherine and Jessie Lee, Catherine Jago, and she's British, and Jessie Lee Kercheval, they translated this book that was published in New Orleans this year in March. I didn't see the book yet because I didn't see it physically. They sent me some books, and probably they are lost in somewhere. But we work about 2 years about this select new poems called titled "The Voice and the Shadow." So they could talk about the challenge of translate something like The Voice. The Voice is very difficult to translate, really. I think Catherine made a great job. She is a great poet, and she could make it. We work together. I answer about, I don't know, a book of questions, and I love to do that work in translation. Because it forces me to see my poetry as if it was from another one. So I discovered a lot of things with the work with Catherine, with the translation. Okay, what do you mean in this? What do I mean? I mean, this is poetry. I don't mean anything, but but I have to work on that, and I work on that because I'm a professor too, so I can read a text and interpret it, and I love to do that.
Oh, thank you. And we have a link from Indran where we can read your translations. So great.
Indram is publishing now these 2 poems. Indram is publishing 2 poems translated by Catherine in his magazine in these days, right, Indram? In these days, just came out.
In Washington D.C. we are located, but it's an online magazine, so can be read anywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I wrote something, but I can talk it. Just I can talk, or I can read as I talk about this. What I call the staging of the voice or the voice and the poem. If you want, I can catch it's very brief. Or if you want to ask something, you want me to talk about this, the poem and the voice?
Yeah.
That we fine?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. This says something like the first voice is immeasurable and arrives becomes writing. Sometimes in a mediumistic way, it says or dictates words, and sometimes it likes something and it shatters. And in another time, taking that inscription, I will search for the voice of the poem. And there is a sonorous breath that crouch and apparently silent encourage what is written. So here starts the journey of the voice of the poem towards its own discovery. I think somebody has the microphone open, and I receiving a huge noise here. I don't know if we can. Okay, thank you.
I will silence.
Okay, I was trying to go to the journey of the voice. That's the journey of the voice of the poem towards its own discovery. I think it's the art of remaking the words that are fixed in the page and convert them in a resonance. In the process, I can feel that some words are awakening, and it's when I perceive that language is live, and then this activates some of its properties. So the voice enters into the poem to discover a new dimension, or maybe it's originally form of the poem that the inscription captured only in a way. This search, it goes like if I could reach something of the intimate nature of the poem, something that only comes with the voice, something that the writing lost in its process. In that round trip, the poem occurs. Is the return of the captured or the secret voice to another voice that will be the concrete matter to work on. And there's no single way for that hunting. There's not only a way. Writing for me is a sign between two infinite voices. The writing is a starting point, but not the final goal, nor the last resting place of the poem. So many times I rewrite the same poem, a lot of times, as the Japanese Haiga painters paint the Fuji over and over again. The thing is, I do not write to perpetuate one unique voice, but to follow the voice of each poem, to follow the poem's avatars, could say. Writing is for me an exploration, that's what I was saying, in which each poem looks for its form, and that form gets rid of the text that tries to limit the exploration. If I write to arrive to a traditional form, like a haiku, for example, the initial trance arises from the mind in meditation, blank meditation, and only later I will count the syllables and fix the words to the metro. But I do not, usually I don't start from a topic, although I can write at defined shores without proposing in advance. I think each poem is the beginning of a new path. I don't know, I don't have any idea where it's going. And I'm discovering areas and textures, sounds and images in a territory that it has to be explored. Something like the magic of words is an action that opens the senses of something that could be the organs, the bones, the thought of the poem. So the work of the unique and singular form of the poem contains, for me, unpredictable sounds. The final support can be recorder recording in a digital format, an unrepeatable performance, a graffiti on the wall, a series of poems with musical sounds or image, or with the body in dance. I love to work with dancers. It could be a raving phonic poem or a mantra, or a verbal drawing, or a polyphonic song, or a verse that with other words make a book, or a simple song. So I think this is the synthesis of something of what I do with language. The synthesis of the verse and the voice is like a tense rope where I cultivate what I do not know what it is. I know nothing about myself, and the poem sometimes reveals me something. I think the poems have their own life, and a drift that looks to find itself in others. And so, in conclusion, the scripture, what we call the writing, is a parenthesis. It's just a parenthesis for me between two infinite voices, a trace between one voice and the other that finally goes to the performance. Something like that. I don't know if this makes any sense to you. We can talk about it if you want to. Or we can listen work with musicians. I don't know how are we doing with time, Felipe?
We're okay. We usually use like 2 hours in total, but
all right.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe I was thinking we could mix something about this and this reflection you just made, and a little part of your work with musicians, which was, I think, the first work of yours I saw like 12 years ago in Montevideo. I remember it was part of what then became Tamudando, and I really love it. And it was very fresh, very difficult to tell if it was music or sound poetry. I mean,
what the hell is it?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, yeah, and in that sense, although it's very different, but it's similar to what happens with the Orquesta de Poetas, where there are instruments and effects in the voice and performance, etc. In fact, yes. I don't know if you know this, but when Federico started the project of Orquesta de Poetas and invited us to like a first meeting, we decided to do a first session just to see and hear other works of different poets we knew and we wanted to share. I don't know. I think maybe I might have shown works by Jörg and Joachim and James Chaton, for example, I suppose. But I remember that we saw your DVD Tamudando, and we were very interested. So it was one of the first influence in the Orquesta de Poetas. But yeah, I would like to ask you in relation to that, how the work with musicians, with dancers, and also I don't know if you have worked with actors, but I think you're very conscious of your body and your movements when you're performing. Some kind you can think of like a theatrical way of presenting your text. So I want to know how that relation has been along this time. What have you learned? Which difference have you found in the approaches?
Yes, I love to work with another people, another language, and I have the opportunity I feel very, lucky to start to doing that in the 80s and in the 90s, when the presentiality was very important. So I learned a lot about working on stage in the first work we call Ritual for 13 Landscape of Rain. I had a book that was titled Rain in 1988, and then we start to work with a poet, but an actor too, was Victor Guichon, and then we invited 2 dancers. We were all very young. We were 20s, in the 20s, last 20s. 2 dancers, and then we invited some students I have in my workshop. I used to bring a workshop, and there was a very young musician that I invite him to work. He's now a very famous musician. He's Jorge Drexler. So he came with Laura too, and we made an incredible, troupe, musicians, dancers, actors, and we made this ritual for 2 or 3 days in the theater. The theater told us to stay 3 months. So I discovered in me this incredible joy of mixing languages, and I've been working on that many times with Tamudando that you are talking about. Tamudando is from 2010.
Yeah.
10 years ago. That's very interesting, because the poems come from a book that called Lichen, and they are, like haikus. They are not haikus because I'm not doing but they are very brief poems, very silent poems. And then when I start to work with Berta Pereira, she's a great vocalist.
Yeah,
she's a great vocalist. So we start to develop the sound of some words and start to transformate the sound of the words of poems that had sometimes 3 verses in a performance of 9 minutes.
yeah.
So that work I think is incredible to do, but I could do it because I opened the poem. I mean, the sound of the poem to the art of Berta. So we mixed our voices, our phonetic work, and then became a very experimental thing because we invited Pojo Piris, that is another musician that he invented some instruments, because he invented instruments. He studied native instruments, and then he invented a bass and a drum, a bass drum. I don't know. He's incredible. Well, I didn't pick those. I didn't pick those tracks to see, but you can see it in they are all in YouTube.
Yeah, I just put a link of one of them, of Llaves, and something that I really like about that project is that, I mean, when we usually combine sound poetry, experimental poetry with music, usually we tend more to like very experimental music, and I don't know. But in this case, it has percussion, and it's very related to like the traditional music from Uruguay with a lot of African.
Yeah, candombe.
Candombe, exactly.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I really like that because it felt like very experimental, but it was very easy to follow and to get in. It's not that only noise or just like that. It was really.
You think you can share it? You have the link if you want.
Yeah, I just put the link. I don't know if I can share it because I don't have the sound. Maybe Fede?
Fede is.
Or we lost him.
Fede is missing.
No, I'm here.
Fede,
I'm here all the time.
¿Puedes poner tú, porque sería quizá mejor que mostráramos ese video, lo que estábamos hablando de Tamudando? Puse
¿Sí?
Llaves. Si lo pones tú, yo creo que va a estar con el sonido directo.
Okay.
Let's see if it works.
Sí.
In the meantime, you can take your own keys and make sound.
Yeah.
This is not that 14 rituals, the 14 landscape, is it?
No.
14. No.
Okay.
This is from 2013, and it comes from the book that it is titled Licking, that is been translated in English too, that book, for Stonebridge in Iowa in 2015. And this poem is also a meta-poetic reflection about poetry and singing.
There it is.
Are you hearing?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
I think you should.
¿Quién sonó fuera de sí? ¿Oyó? ¿Quién voló fuera de sí? ¿Oyó? ¿Quién voló fuera de sí? ¿Oyó?
Llaves are keys. That's keys.
¿Quién voló fuera de sí?
El desvarío de vocablos.
Los cánticos del árbol de la memoria. Quien despertó fuera de allí, lo supo.
¿Sabió?
Que del sueño que soñamos.
Soñito del alma mía.
Trovadores ejulares.
Soñaba con mis amores, que en mis brazos los tenía.
Ejulares trovadores. Que del sueño que soñamos.
Ajá.
La clave siempre.
Tamudando.
¿Quién voló fuera de sí? ¿Y quién despertó fuera de allí? ¿Sabió? ¿Sabió? ¿Quiere que le diga y una y otra vez?
Ajá.
¿Y otra vez? Lo olvidó.
Okay.
It's great, great.
Well,
it's great to put some rhythm.
From time to time.
Yeah. Not only noise. I mean, I love noise, but it's great to work with rhythm and percussions, and it also, I think it allows people with very different interests, and maybe that people that don't know anything about sound poetry, I mean, to catch it and to enter in this loop. So great.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone has more questions, comments.
Maybe about the last, the thing that you were saying, Felipe, about rhythm and or percussion or whatever. This relationship with the popular culture in Latin America and the avant-garde in poetry, I think in Brazil, principally, mainly now. Maybe I don't know enough about the circles, in the European circles, for saying that this is something that is happening in Latin America only. I mean, maybe you can tell us more about this relationship between popular culture. Of course, there are more famous cases like Chaton and Moore, for example, for instance, no. But with the result that is not really like popular music. But in Brazil, I think in Arnaldo Antunes, this man that is in the big musical industry, but he can also go down. I mean, to do very experimental and fantastic things, and the possibility to put them together also in some works. And I think that Luis, it's been very important doing that in Tamudando, but in other projects too. No? And I don't know if this is like something ours, or maybe it's happening more, and I celebrate when it happens.
I think in the beginning of 20th century was the Poème pour crier et danser de Pierre-Albert Birot. Kind of like
Albert Birot is a great reference.
That kind of
Yeah, the phonée, la phonée.
No, I think it's like really, yeah, and all
Yes,
the primitive songs and all the, I don't know,
yeah.
that limit the boredom between rhythm, sound, and poetry is really happening, you know, in different moments. That's the different. Maybe it's like maybe the hard part that we are here. We are more in that rhythm create, but electronics. But at the same time, we can create with drums or with the voice, with the echo. You go like to the cave where they painting in the cave. You feel that kind of echo in the way that we're sounding. You say something and it's still like waiting and create a rhythm in a way.
Yeah.
But of course, in the work of Luis and in the work in Brazilian avant-garde poetry is really important in the roots of that.
Yeah, the root of the avant-garde in the 20s, you know, the anthropophagic manifesto from 1928 from Oswald Andrade. I think is the matrix, is the basic of confluence, you know, of how Latin American avant-garde assimilate, you know, Europeans influence and make another thing with those European things. I think the concept of the anthropophagic culture is very important in our history, and then you can catch that concept and go to the concrete poets you know, and the concrete poets are doing the same but with visual things and phonetic things too, and then you have the popular link of that tradition, the anthropophagic and the concrete, with the tropicalism, with the musicians from the Northwest, Caetano and Gilberto and all that people. So when I was 13, 14, we were very impacted for the tropicalism in Montevideo. So I learned about that incredible confluence of the popular and the avant-garde through the tropicalism. And I think this Tamudando has a lot of things with tropicalism, but with not with bossa nova, but with candombe, that is more than our Afro rhythm in Montevideo. There's
the concrete poetry was, I think, concrete poetry was that kind of double roots, because like all with Fallstrom and Gomringer, they have they were like middle South America, middle European, and then I think they had a kind of double round trip between of them. You know, the double influence that could be.
Yeah, Gomringer is very important.
And also, you know, the Dadaist, they really influence with the African music, African rhythms.
Yes.
And that, I think that is and that is the one of the roads between music and poetry.
Yes, I have this. I think I have this video that we choose to share if you want it. That is the last. I think it's the last song in the concert from this trio, Lengua Lunfa, that we made on 3 years ago. And this song is a poem. It titles "Que lo parió." I think we don't have to the way to translate it, maybe "what the fuck," no, but in a positive way. You know, what the fuck? This is incredible. And we have here the translator. I choose this because this poem. I'm gonna talk about this poem. What the fuck? Let me see. is the topic is like a time worm, in which a bard is walking the street of the Barrio Sur of Palermo, Montevideo, and at the same time he realizes that he's walking in Harlem, New York. So there's some words like Montenieva, Villordeo, that are the fusion of those two cities, and the poem is a tribute to the Afro music in both cultures, the candombe in that neighborhood called Barrio Sur here in Montevideo, and the jazz of the 50s when jazz came out in Harlem, in New York. So the candombe, is an Afro rhythm made by 3 kinds of drums, and if you travel sometimes to Montevideo, try to do it on February or March when the candombe of our carnival is every day on the streets and on the theaters, making people dancing and singing with its unique rhythm. And this poem that we made with this trio, Lengua Lunfa, is a tribute to these two incredible influence for me, the candombe and the popular music and the jazz. And this translation belongs to Federico. Federico is now here. He's a very young translator, filmmaker, poet, musician. Federico Casal is here, and he translated to me when he was a student at the university. You can see the lyrics, and then we can listen the video. I think it's very much well quality that Tamudando, because I didn't send Tamudando. I sent this, right, Federico. Yeah. I want this. This is the lyric. I don't know. Yeah, maybe someone wants to read it.
It's quite longer.
Oh yeah. But I'm naming some things, that, or when the saints goes marching in, writing like in a phonetic things. We work to the musical thread of the planet, the carnival to the thunders, 3 wise men trumpets, and Juramno de Jacare. Jacare is one of the streets here through the village of the birds. I'm celebrating the Afro music all from Montevideo to New York in this, and has a lot of images from both cultures. More tributes from both cultures.
Do I put the video? Yeah. Cool. We can hear it.
Okay. Nos vamos a ir con.
Were you hearing it?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Por una ciudad que es 2 a la vez, a través de un gusano de tiempo que la poesía celebra. Se celebra aquí la integración, la diversidad de culturas que nos identifican y muy especialmente las entrañables músicas de la cultura negra, el candombe de acá del Barrio Sur y el jazz de Harlem. Gracias a cada uno de ustedes por recibirnos esta noche. Camino entre la gente, esta calle vacía, entre las sombras de los árboles camino. Voy de la cabeza por Montevideo. ¿Y quién te va a decir es Nueva York la que se sienta blanca en tus pestañas? ¿Cuál es la diferencia a fin de cuentas? Las cuentas nunca alcanzan a dar con el cristal de la noche en tu ventana. En esta calle la gente no se calla. Se asoma Nueva York en tu ventana, a escuchar el cuero de la noche en las llamadas. Montevideo de un lado a otro de las horas, Nueva York en simultáneo. Ya comemos. Y aquí vamos. Montenieva Villordeo. Que lo parió. Montenieva Villordeo. Y aquí vamos maquinando. Por gusanos simultáneos. Danza terrestre de los santos. Vamos marchando. O Wendesein o Marchinin. Marchinin estoy maquinando. La cinta musical de los planetas. La comparsa de los truenos. Trompetas de Reyes Magos. Voy contigo, voy. Tambor del Yacarín. Por el Vila de los barrios. Montenieva Villordeo. A las caderas le saco apunte. A la cabeza voy apuntando. Al corazón voy apuntando. Al enjambre del sexo con la palabra. Montenieva Villordeo. Que chamulla la noche en la estacada. Que alucina en el cerrito la victoria de Samotracia. Que dice la redonda de los bardos. ¿Qué pelota te va a dar la historia ahora, José Gervasio? Voy contigo, Nueva York, montevideando. Quien tuviera entre las manos la cadencia del amor, el libro con los versos de Dios, la alegría de tu Señor, la fiesta de los sábados. Quien tuviera tu libertad, Nueva York, entre los salmos. Con el abanico de los ritmos, las cintas del chullero me transportan. Hoy contigo en trance, mon amour. Somos todos barros en este barrio. Que lo parió Montenieva Villordeo. La lunga lengua luz, que lo Montenieva Villordeo, los santos vienen marchando por la vereda del sol. O Wendesein o Marchinin. ¿Qué te parió? ¿Qué te parió? Montenieva Villordeo, a los barcos. Dieguito Cáceres en bajo. Martín Chino Maristón, batería. Andrea Viera, saxo y traversa. traversa, dije, ¿no? Guitarra, sampler, composición, Ale, Juana.
La lunga lengualunza.
Que lo parió. Montenieva, Villordeo, a los bardos. Que lo parió.
Buenísimo, Luis. Bueno,
It's a pity. I think it has a lot of I don't know, stops, but you know.
Yeah, no, really cool.
Cool.
Well, I think that all of who didn't know your work at least have had a very broad view of the kind of areas
Yeah.
that you're touching in your poetry. It's very diverse. I mean, from purely
very
phonetic
different
poetry
things.
to music to performance. And it's wonderful to be able to show and to talk with you about all this. And I don't know if there's any questions, or I know that you have a proposal for our classical final improvisation, so maybe you can talk us about that.
Oh yes, we have this. You remember Russolo? We were talking with Martin about futurism, and remember Russolo? He went from the painting to the music, right? And with Juan Ángel Italiano, some afternoon we were recording, and we just make some instruments, some domestic instruments and domestic sounds, and we made a track with sounds. So if you want, we can put that, and you can make an improvisation on that track of sound if you want it. I don't know. I think there's a lot of people that had to go. I was looking at the chat, so I don't know if there's the willing.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's always. We say yes to everything.
Okay. I had this text I used to do on that track, just okay. But everyone can do anything. All right.
Loud.
Yeah.
Loud.
El estornudo desanudado, el estornucrito, el estornino volando bajito, el estuario escrito en letra de plata, el estrangulado anguloso y azul, el extravagante musicalizado, el ex campeón de todas las redotas, el estrógeno de las muchachas en flor, el extraordinario nacimiento de la voz, el esotérico amor por las aceitunas rellenas, el ex convicto y sus dientes amarillos en la urna, el estirado músculo de la hora final, el estupendo solo de la soprano herida de bala en el vientre, el estupro sadiano radicalmente republicano, el escañil de la republiqueta, el estupor de ese avión chocando una y otra vez contra la torre y su gemela, el extranjero que me habita, el extraño del pelo largo, el extraño del pelo largo, el extraño del pelo largo, el exilio de los sueños, de los sueños, de los sueños. El eximio Homo sapiens pegando la vuelta. El existencialismo sin adjetivo. El estimulante a toda velocidad. El esencial dibujo de la sonrisa. El esporádico soplo divino. El escribano del barro. El extraño mudo. Barro. El éxtasis de la montaña y su mago lunático. El espíritu del arte o del artista. El esfuerzo del esfínter. El esfínter de la forma. El examen de física para recibirse de héroe del siglo XVII. El exabrupto del eructo. El escriba de la criba rigurosa. El escriba de la criba rigurosa. El eunuco que perdió la S. El de la pena. El ex voto del semen. El espiral ADN del universo. El escaparate cibernético del ego. ¡Ego! El ejemplo de Minaya. El espadazo del Quijote. El escrutinio de Minos. El escribiente de la voz. El escroto. El esplendor de la belleza desnuda como vino al mundo. El estudioso. Broso. El escucha radioaficionado viajando en el tiempo. El exuberante hula hula, hula hula, hula hula, de las olas. El exultante sin bronazo de lograr. El escrache popular. El escrache popular. El escrache popular. El escrache popular. El es popu. El popu. El escalado escarmentado. El espaldarazo de la fe. El escultor del tiempo. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. Like it's late now. Like midnight. Thank you, Luis. Fantastic.
No, thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
work.
No, thank
All
you.
that kind of eclectical from sound performance.
Whatever you like.
I enjoy it a lot. You were a great team here. I just want to say that it's incredible all the things that you've been doing here during these months. Martin from, I know, Martin, you are in Barcelona.
No, in
You're
Paris.
You're in Paris. Okay. I'm sorry.
But me, I'm sometimes.
And Martin Gubins, where is Martin Gubins? He
had to
went
go.
out, but
He disappeared.
okay. And Felipe from Santiago. It's been a great ciclo. I don't know. I'm very proud to be here. I'm honored, really, and I just expect not to, discharge you too much.
No, it was fantastic. Thank you. Really, really good.
In
And
this
thank
great
you
work.
to Federico, which was the DJ and VJ today.
No,
Congratulations.
without Federico, I wouldn't be here because I was very, I have a, said, no, I'm not ready for do this with all these talent people. I just, it's not, but thanks to Federico because he pushed me to say, no, you can do it. Okay. If you say so. I don't know. Is thank you for everyone.
Yeah, of course. Thank you,
Thank you.
Luis, and please continue to explore new
Thanks so
things.
much, Luis.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gustav.
Thank you. It was really inspiring.
All right.
Very inspiring.
Well, that's very good.
I think we have to work on the pop culture part.
Sorry, Derek.
We have to work on the pop culture part in this group also.
Okay,
A little more pop culture avant-garde. I would love to see that because I know it's a very strong movement in South America, Latin America, and I really miss it in Europe.
Yeah.
We have not a lot of that. It's really very separate in Europe. So this is something we should continue to do.
Yeah.
All right.
Poeta Marcianos, we have to show them.
Yeah, you have to show us how to do it.
Martian Poets is a great band.
Martian Poets, you would love them. They are really crazy guys. See you next week with the Martin Cummings, right?
Yeah. Have another South America poet.
And thank you, Laura and Federico, that they've been here. Thank you for being here.
Well,
okay.
Next week.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Night.
Ciao.
See you next Wednesday.
Ciao,
Bye.
Martín. Ciao, Felipe. Gracias, Fede.
Gracias.
Arriba.
Un abrazo.
Ciao.
Fantástico.
Ciao.